Hey, this is Zach Clark, Development and Leadership Coaching, and I want to speak very briefly to leaders of faith-based organizations and board members of faith-based organizations about a particular topic and question that comes up all the time with me. This is a very common thing, and I've not talked a lot about this on video before, so I actually want to step into this and really equip you with a different type of thinking, whether you are leading an organization or whether you're on the board or whether you're trying to work as leader with your board as it relates to growing significant giving and the role of the board. So the question before me really is, how do you move a board forward in growing a culture of generous giving? How do you move a board of directors or trustees forward in growing a culture of significant giving? So I wish I could give you a 10-step plan, but instead I am going to give you some specific things to contemplate and then take action on carefully over time. Essentially, the first thing I try to help people understand is there are different types of boards needed for different types of ministry organizations. There are some organizations that really do need a doctrinal or theological board or a large contingent that's very grounded in that to maintain their mission over generations. That type of board's probably not going to be a very typically is not seen to be mega donors on the board and or oriented toward raising more money. They're a protecting board. They're holding in trust this mission. There are other boards that need expertise of certain kinds, and so the board has been built that way. Obviously, in the nonprofit world, the tendency and the teaching of most experts is you need a board of major givers who are going to give and get. They're going to give and get. My dad was a big believer in that. My thing is this about boards is different boards have different cultures, and it is extremely challenging to change that culture. It does not happen overnight. And so you may have in your head a perfect view of what the board really should do or really should be doing or should become. But many a leader and many a board chairman have been broken upon the rock that is the board culture that's already established. And I think I see tremendous amounts of time and energy wasted because people are obsessing on this board. Oh, we could just raise so much more money if the board was doing this and if they were giving more and we only have this percentage of board members giving. Now, I say all that, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about the board's involvement in giving, but I think it's important to understand that this is a cultural thing. This is not fixed with policy of just establishing a policy that all board members are going to give or all board members are going to give at a certain level. This is about the culture that is already in place and a culture that you're trying to go, and being clear about where you are and where you're trying to go over the long haul is very important. And here's why. Because especially here in the United States, nonprofit boards typically perpetuate themselves. Okay, boards perpetuate themselves, which means good or bad, whatever the culture is, it's going to get perpetuated. It's not going to change overnight. So remember, this is a journey, and this is not something that you just set once and forget it. You've really got to be thinking years ahead. When they're the board, who's rotating off and who's sort of on the committees that's growing into these new roles. The effective leaders that I know that have been able to stay in organizations 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, they are continually developing the relationships among the board and potential board members and future board members, and they are thinking way down the road, because a single wrong board decision, new board member, can really cause a lot of cultural challenges for the board. So this is a journey. Now, in terms of board involvement in giving, let me speak to that a little bit. I would say that board involvement and development is a force. It is a force to be reckoned with, and it is the most underutilized and fast disappearing aspect of our philanthropic culture in America. It is so frustrating. Studies show the volunteer involvement in raising money is at its peak post World War II, and it's just continued to drop with the rise of so-called professional fundraisers. And so that being said, though, the reality of the impact that a board can have or a board member can have in growing giving is astonishing. It is I would say it's an unrivaled weapon in the war to advance your ministry forward in terms of greater success. There is nothing like it. But the problem is the number of people who are willing to volunteer and who say they don't want to ask for money or they're not comfortable asking for money, that number just continues to grow, right? So you know it's getting harder and harder to find those people. So my encouragement to board members is to try to stir them up and stir each other up to say this isn't about a board member becoming a fundraiser. This is about a board member and the board catching a glimpse of the unbelievable impact that they can have by just asking people to come and see, stop, look, listen. Let me share with you why I'm on the board. Let me share with you why I'm committing so much time and energy to this. Let me share with you why I'm giving at whatever level it is, why I'm giving my time, why I'm giving my money. Mr. Board Member, Mrs. Board Member, you are not a fundraiser. Don't worry about being a fundraiser. You are an inspiration. Because as a board member, people know you are not paid to be there. You are committing time, energy, and money to this. And your presence, you showing up and you opening your mouth and speaking authentically about that changes people. And it does it like no other staff person can. It is not an expertise issue. It is not being slick. It's not trying to sell people. It is just showing up and sharing your heart about why in the world you are involved in this. And here's the thing, if you can't clarify that, why in the world are you on this board? It's certainly not for the pay. It's probably not prestigious. It probably doesn't get you any sort of political clout. And so there's a reason why. And when you show up and when you share that in an authentic way, it changes people. It really does. And the giving will follow. So my encouragement to leaders is don't get fixated on trying to change board culture overnight. It takes time. My encouragement to boards is you have no idea. You are vastly underestimating the impact you can have individually. You have no idea until you start showing up and telling people why in the world you bother and asking them to just stop and look and pay attention to what God is doing in this organization. So I hope that is an encouragement to you. I hope I've challenged you a little bit. And I thank you for letting me sort of step into a topic that I get asked about all the time, but I don't often really teach on this quite a bit. So I want to try to share some of this. Hope it's helpful. Let me hear from you and keep up your amazing work. Okay? Thanks for letting me be a part of it.